Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. I know it's the start of the top of the hour. We're going to begin in just 2 minutes. We thank you for your patience. Hang on the line just a little bit longer. Good morning and welcome. Thank you so much for joining our webinar here on maximizing your return on investment, specifically around technology with change management and organizational effectiveness. My name is Jason Price, and I'm the practice lead of this team here at Core Business Technology Solutions. A couple items of housekeeping. This session is being recorded, and of course, we're going to share it with you after the session is done. If you disapprove of being recorded, please disconnect from the session. If you have any questions, there's a lovely panel that you can expand and open up, and inside there you'll find a Q&A box. And please pop your questions into that. We're happy to address them as we go. I'd love to be able to make sure that by the time you're done with this session, you walk away having a deeper understanding of these nascent practices, if you're not from the HR world, and how they can better protect and maximize your investments in technology. When we talk specifically about technology and its role in enabling your business to do better, I know our mantle is about becoming a solution innovator, but it comes really from the needs of the business. Technology is only an enabler of what the business wants to do. So a lot of the time, when we begin these processes, these projects, we have to understand how a business works best. We listen, we learn, we communicate, and our idea is to provide and support these needs from the business that translate into workflows, into collaboration spaces, into entire projects that then become these wider and enhanced solutions. We've been doing this for about 5 years now. My division was recently acquired and brought onto Core, which is why now we're providing this session to you to explain a little bit deeper about it. Uh, and and our role is really to understand that so we can maximize exactly how a business takes advantage of technology. Specifically, Microsoft, I'm going to talk to through the process of this session. Uh, and go deep into how solutions can be generated inside of it through our proven delivery framework. So, bearing all that in mind, I also want to speak to kind of an example. And I'm going to take one of our client profiles that we had a great deal of success with prior to this acquisition. So, as is the case when a franchise or a business experiences large exponential growth, this particular business was encountering several internal challenges. It was growing a little bit faster than it had structure for, and the company found itself in a position of needing better communications. It needed to foster collaboration between departments and cross-functional teams to empower its operations teams to better support their network of retail stores. And and what they had built over time was kind of an inconsistent mix of tools. And this led them to a kind of a fragmented, disjointed work environment. I'll go here to do this one task, and then I'll take the output of that and go to this tool and input the output of the last one and run that, and then I would go to this one, and it was kind of all over the place. Meanwhile, IT was kind of struggling to manage all of this appropriately because they had rogue IT, rogue departments going off and subscribing to this service because it was fulfilling a need, but there wasn't really a larger picture being drawn to say this is perhaps the direction we should go in. So they found themselves in the position of saying, we need to look at a platform that's going to serve us for all of these needs. And that's where core change management came into play. So this is the example I'm going to use. And we basically started to approach it from the services that we provide in terms of change management. Now, while this is a case study I'm going to talk to through the course of this, do feel free to ask me questions about specifically your business or your situation, because we can extrapolate out to all of those. But we have to take a step back. I have to assume that you don't know a ton about change management. Why else would you be here on this webinar? So let me explain first what change management is. So when your organization is undertaking an initiative, any type of initiative, to improve performance, to seize market opportunities, to address key issues, you're talking about a change to process, change to job functions, to roles, to potentially, and think of an acquisition that we just went through, change to organizational structures, changes to types and uses of technology. And contrary to popular belief, the ultimate responsibility for that change does not lie with leadership. It lies with your individual employees. They have to change how they behave, how they do their jobs on a daily basis. And that is, I mean, have you ever tried to change the behavior of a 6-year-old to tell them, no, stop going to the cookie jar on top of the fridge or I'm going to have to slap you? It's trying to do that for, I have 11-year-old daughters, and trying to change their behavior away from digital screens after school, or any change of behaviors of inherently emotional process. There's resistance built into it as humans. So the change management framework helps individuals to cross that gap and go on that journey through these five steps, as you see here: awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. If individuals are unsuccessful in making that personal transition, that emotional journey, if they don't embrace and change their behavior and learn new ways of working, then it doesn't matter how great the widget is or the solution is or the technology is. That initiative is going to fail. It's not going to achieve its success criteria. However, if you lay in a strategy with change management that helps employees go through that emotional process, then your initiative can deliver expected results. You can smooth the process for end users, that experience of transition, help minimize the productivity that's dropped during that. And you can also pick up along the way tools to solve various business challenges and maximize then the return on investment. So it means you got to pay attention to your people and adhere to them. This is kind of a new approach. In the past, I think in the last 30 years or so, people have thought, oh, you know what? We'll send an email and we'll hold a training and we'll lock everybody in a room for 90 minutes. And by the time they come out, everything will be fine. That's the old way of thinking. These days, people have less time. They have less ability to follow that. And you know what? There's more that needs to occur to make them aware, to make them want that change, to make them seek the ability to use those tools, and to have that new way of working reinforced on them. So that's the basic discipline. Now, why is this necessary? Well, if you simply look at what actually McKenzie did, they did a study over 10 years looking at the average rate of return on all large project implementations, and they found out that that overall return was negative. They were looking at project variables of over 40 companies, and specifically the effect of what organizational change management played on a project's return on investment. And you can see by this graph, 143% ROI was attained when an excellent OCM program was part of that initiative. And when it wasn't, when there was no program or a poor OCM program, they got 35% of their return on investment. What does that mean? That means you're leaving 65 cents of every dollar invested in that project, in that brand new shiny thing you built, on the table. So right there you can see, and Pepperdine, you can go to this link and see how they broke that all down. But it's some people say to me, you know what, this is expensive. We only have a certain budget. And I say, okay, great. Let's try to work within that. But if you think that you can leave change management out of a project, then you're putting a lot of risk into it. How do we here at Core then wrap change management into our process? Actually, our full delivery methodology is agile in nature, meaning that we will seek business requirements and create solutions through a cyclical process, collaborating between various teams. This is involving adaptive planning, evolutionary development, where we are delivering early, in some cases, we are failing fast and learning from that and continuously improving the product rapidly, flexibly, so that we can get to a final solution state, deliver it, and bridge that gap. So as the engineers are going through this process, we too, here on the change management team, are also doing it. And that leads us to essentially what is our playbook of services. So we approach these projects with a bucket of tricks. And at some point, somebody says, oh, God, if we only had this particular item, we can pull that item out and we can deliver to it. So if you are looking to do the same with your projects, then and your goal is to drive user adoption, then you might look at a similar playbook of services to bring into that project. What we will do first is conduct some analysis. Where does a project stand? How much change are you really talking about? Is it something simple or is it complex? When we initially look at a project, we are looking at scale and complexity in terms of the services, the subscriptive services that are being implemented during a particular phase. And you can see here, typically when people come to Microsoft 365, there's generally a ladder, a tiered approach to it. First step is getting enabled, getting onto the cloud, getting our email off of wherever it is and onto Exchange Online, getting our mobile devices secure with Intune, getting our personal files that reside in our My Documents folder somewhere on my computer up onto OneDrive. and implementing Windows 10 so the service is secure and up to date. Well, most of those are out of the box types of services. So the complexity on is pretty low. And that means we can deliver a bronze level of service to that. Now you're up on the cloud. Now what you want to do is start taking advantage of what those other tools that are already part of your subscription offer to you, and apply those to the business. Maybe it's communication, it's cloud voice. It could be Teams out of the box, Microsoft Teams. SharePoint Online for team collaboration. Power BI for visualization. That's like a moderate level of complexity. And then at some point, once you're up and working with those, then you might want to work with big data, sales, CRM, bots, custom workflows, intranets, social enterprise. So when you get to this level, you're getting into like a very customized type of environment that has to be, there's multifacets to all of that to get it ready and active for users to take to and to continue to use and stick to as a service. Highly complex. So for those, we take a gold level approach to these. That's generally how we look at projects as they come in the door. But of course, once we start working with them, we find that there's much more going on and much more that the business will need from that solution and that solution set. So here's where we go into our first phase, discovery. And we use many of these tools you see here, and I'm going to dive into each one of these. Some of these are custom to core, and some of these are actually Microsoft built. Let's start with our custom flagship service, and that is the Value Envisioning Workshop. Envisioning from the executive perspective. Critical. Not so much critical because, you want all of your executives to waste 6 hours of their day. That's an expensive time that's invested in it. No, we want to turn that investment into number one, a vision of the future state. Number two, a long list of their current business scenarios that are challenged. Where is their problem? Where the problems lie in your division, in your line of business? Where is there a lot of friction? Where are people losing time? Where is data getting lost? Where are errors getting made? What's costing more than it should? Now, believe me, your marketing managers, your HR managers, your VPs of operations, they know these things. They want to solve them. So they're very good about providing that context, whiteboarding it, putting it up on the wall where everybody can contribute to it and make for an accurate picture of the current state. And this is really important with your business leaders, because one of the primary challenges we see with our projects when they first come to us is that there's a lack of sponsorship outside of IT and a lack of resources to execute that project. By bringing your line of business leaders into this workshop, you can allow them to share their perspective, to agree on the challenges from all across the organization. This is the status quo. And boy, can we continue to do business this way? It's a really good question. You can see it. You can look at it on the wall and realize that we have to solve for this. We can't keep doing it the way we are. That creates consensus among your executive stakeholders on creating solutions, and invest then into a vision of the future state. So from there, we take them into a sandbox environment of Microsoft 365. We give them all the toys to play with, and we take them on a specific tour that goes through the features relative to the pain points that they just put on the boards. So by the end of that exploration, they've seen all the different workloads, Office, OneDrive, SharePoint, enterprise mobility, Teams, Power BI. These workshops, these conversations that they have about these solutions and the discoveries that they have inside that sandbox environment are very powerful. And by the time we're done with that, it's very easy then for your business leaders to look back at these problems and generate solutions for them based on what they've seen. And we do that in the form of user stories. So it's not specific about this one tech will do this for me. No, let's talk about what's important for you as a leader, for your management team, for your frontline workers, for your knowledge workers, for all the constituents within your line of business. Generate those user stories, and you know what? We'll come up with the solutions. You prioritize those. You give us success criteria. You tell us exactly what success metrics to measure on our journey to that future state, and we take all of that together, we wrap it up into a debrief document, and we put a draft vision statement together and provide it back so that then your stakeholders can iron that out, mash out that vision, mash out that those criteria of that future state, and guess what? Now you've got a working case for not only making that change. You don't just have consensus about that, but you've got the elements of what go into all of our adoption planning. For communications, here's your vision statement. For training, here are your business scenarios. Here are the tools and the features we're going to train to. And you also have a prioritized list of where you can start with phase one and where you can end up with. And you can lay that out in that debrief document. Now your executives can articulate that vision and can they've got exactly an idea of where they're headed and get their teams to invest in it. That vision statement now can generate buy-in for your various end users. Awareness and desire, those first two elements in the change process. So that gets you most of the way. Then we can conduct some business analysis with you, organizational analysis, task analysis, gap analysis, so we can define exactly current, future state, and the gap between those. And also give us an idea of what your culture looks like, how ready that culture is, what are the pitfalls to watch out for, what are the preferences that we should execute to in communication and learning. So that gives us a really good insight into, and it's very good for using first off when you're approaching a project of this magnitude. Microsoft itself has a business value program that also stretches across these elements. And they've expanded on these and used various tools to go deeper into the needs of the business, the scenarios that outcome from it. And they can also, from that fashion, what is your total cost of ownership over 3 years based on Forrester Total Economic Impact Studies. So this type of program we also deliver when we want to go deeper into all of those layers. The value discovery workshop, getting just a handful of your executives in to discuss again those problems, those business scenarios, areas of friction, and assess exactly what capabilities are most important to them. So we can churn out for you an executive summary of that, which then makes the case for, okay, let's go deeper. Let's see how this can be proven to work. That takes us into a customer immersion experience. So we're all certified in delivering these explorations of Microsoft 365 capabilities in a sandbox environment, visualizing exactly those new workflows at work, making, that's kind of like your basic proof of concept in a box. And when you come out of that, coming back to those same business leaders and now creating a total cost of ownership analysis based on those economic layers, and giving to them a report that they can take to their board of directors. Here's exactly what's laid out: all of our implementation costs, all of our change costs, and all of the soft benefits that we're going to gain as a result in the financial value of all of those. That's a great tool to have, as well as then sitting down with your IT team and prioritizing and benchmarking your capabilities on a 4-level scale. So we like delivering that when we do have the time. Now, how did it work for our case study client? Well, they asked us to come in and deliver a customer immersion experience specifically to showcase intelligent communications inside of Microsoft Teams. And what happened? Well, as you can see here, specific teams inside of that customer immersion experience took to various capabilities inside the stack. And when they were done, they decided that the change management and the user adoption services that Core was providing were a key differentiator against all the other competitive platforms, as well as adhering to their overall business goals. And after an extensive envisioning process and discussions with our team, that client felt confident that Office 365 was the right platform, that Microsoft Teams was the right technology, and that Core was the right one to deliver it. So look at this vision statement that came. This is not just fluff. Okay, if you break this down, efficiency, productivity, and collaboration, these were actual measures of success. Exactly how much is happening on each of those levels? How do you measure efficiency? How do you measure collaboration? We broke that down, and it turned into a success and measurement strategy that we laid out. Listening, appreciating, and challenging each other. That wraps this entire vision statement back into that specific organization's values and beliefs, into their core values. And that tied us even closer to them and made a solid case for generating buy-in with their end users. So that was a great way to approach it for this particular client. Worked out good. But of course, we have the playbook, so we can pull out whichever tool is necessary at any given time. Then that takes us to design. And after doing analysis of this level, we'll be able to lay out for you what is that strategy for measuring our progress to the future state. Who are our business sponsors that are part of this project, that understand the value, not just financial, but the inherent value of these new ways of working to the lines of business. Programs for champions, for power users, natural influencers already in the organization to become on-the-job resources for their peers, organizing and activating that kind of core group. They have a really important role to play in these programs, because they not only represent various user groups, like specific departments or floors, and can provide feedback back to the project team, but they're also important in owning use cases for their department and then creating additional solutions further down the line. Communications, marketing, training, all of these things are important, of course. And as you look at what is essentially an adoption plan at a very high level, you see that all of these factor back into those 5 phases that are undergoing inside of each individual employee. Where each of these stand. And as you get in, of course, into training, online resources, knowledge and ability, that comes later in the phase 4. And all of these have various factors in them based on the personas in the organization, the culture, the behavioral norms that we pull from our organizational analysis. So having your same approach adhere to this, it's a good, easy way to start out based on that ADKAR type of model. How did our client take to this? Well, we designed for them a corporate adoption plan that involved a lengthy communication campaign. This was their idea to perform skits during company meetings. They actually picked up cardboard cutouts of the various tools and walked them around, and all of them kind of interacted. It was incredible, and they would shoot that onto video and throw it up online and share it out with others. Their campaign was very dynamic. They also organized a champions program at the department level and trained certain champions that then trained additional champions, and then went out from there into the field to their retail operation. And they wanted half-day workshops with agendas specific to those departments for their training. Meanwhile, the franchise, on the other side, in order to scale across all of these stores nationally, we created online documentation and resources that everybody could snap and, of course, share out as necessary, and regional webinars, and the regional champions that were trained out were there to support. So when they actually went on site to those stores, they could provide that on-the-job resource right there. So that's typically where we end at into our design phases. We put everything together, and then at this point, after our client has signed off on the design plan, we'll take one of 2 paths. Either, if it's a complex project, we'll be engaged with our engineers as they're conducting their delivery in sprints, enabling pilots, delivering products. We're right hands-on there, doing that type of work really quickly, constantly refining the successful model, and then expanding that outward across the organization. The other path we may take is to disengage until the engineers have a minimum viable product, like the final look and feel of it in production or in a sandbox. And then we come back in, we re-engage, then we deliver, we train, and we measure. It all depends on how much customization is required, how many system constraints are at work, and also how much the business needs us to cultivate support in advance of training, cultivating sponsors and champions, and additional communication campaigns, skits if you want. So that leads us to then, of course, we get to our delivery phase. And this always varies. Email just for straight information, marketing materials, and these can be digital banners, whatever communication channels work best at your organization. You're going to want to push that information through in some form. What does basic marketing teach us? That you need to send a message at least 7 times before somebody's going to take to that call to action. And so we say, well, you should have at least 7 channels at work, 6 besides your email, to get people to actually take action. Email by itself is not enough. You might need to include events in that, town hall meetings, booths. I've got some examples to show you here in just a second. And then, of course, your training. And training can take one of many different formats. Again, what works best for your organization is going to differ We speak to these dozen modalities you see here. The most popular ones among these are webinars, quick start guides, the learning games, the Learning and Resource Center, like an online central repository of information about the project and and all the learning they need. And we've got some partners in this as well. So this again, like, what does your culture adhere to? What works best there? You can see train the trainer down in the lower right, training workshops in the upper right. On the left this is an example of a SharePoint demonstration. We lined up laptops in the lunchroom, and people came by to go and try and get their hands onto it. We gave them a takeaway document. So whatever happens to work best. One of our favorite tools is Kahoot, because this allows you to have synchronous games in that match up to whatever synchronous delivery you're doing, so that you've got quizzes, and it's competitive, and everybody can use their own mobile device to participate. You get like these campfire moments. They're really fun. We also have custom videos. I'll skip this for now based on time, but we can do those. A Learning and Resource Center, typically built inside of SharePoint Online or inside of Microsoft Teams as a resource. And then Brainstorm Quick Help, we're a partner of theirs. Their video on-demand platform is strong, and we can use that to, again, help scale across an organization depending on its size and variability and locations. So that's a nice open platform to use. And if localization is required to push content into different languages and locations, we've got a partner all set up for that as well. So we get then to probably the most important phase, the dedication. So here, you're measuring the effectiveness of the project based on the success criteria that came out of the discovery phase and the measurement strategy that came out of the design phase. So how satisfied are users with the product and the process that's been going on? How are they taking to the training? Are there additional learning gaps that are missing? What does their active usage look like in the various tools? Yeah, so collaboration means something different for everybody, but how many times are people using a screen share in a webinar like this, for example? That may be an important component. And then wrapping that up and coming back to you with a quarterly review of how you are doing based on the success criteria you laid out on that journey up to and across the cloud. And where are you going next? What is Microsoft releasing next? How do you want to take advantage of that? How do you want to communicate to it? How do you want to train to it? What solutions do you want to build into it? So these are, it's an ongoing dialogue that goes, but really this tends to be our yardstick. The Office 365 Usage Analytics, a very rich dashboard that tells you exactly how people are using it. What activity is happening inside of each of the Microsoft 365 workloads? It's fantastic, and allows you to pinpoint those areas of high usage and of low usage. What departments are kind of lagging behind? What office locations haven't quite gotten it yet? So that you can be tactical about your solutions and go back in to drive the type of adoption you want to see. How did this work for our case study client? Well, they went, of course, because they're spread so far geographically, meeting and calling capabilities came to play, and they now use those to communicate between corporate and the stores. They run their business operations off of those Teams meetings. They check in on a regular basis with them, and that has resulted in reduced costs, increased collaboration. You can see we accelerated deployment process by 30%. reduction in storage costs. Slack was eliminated and replaced by the persistent chat capabilities inside of Microsoft Teams. And now, IT, that formerly was looking over a landscape that was packed with all these little rogue solutions running around, couldn't get a handle on it. Now they easily manage the entire kit and caboodle all together. So that's basically our approach from start to finish. There's more to go into, but I want to kind of wrap things up. Seeing here on the clock, if you have a change manager on staff, good for you. This is almost a necessary service to have at work in an organization. Organizations are living, breathing organisms, and they change, and their behavior is rooted, and you want to guide that evolution. We're well versed in plenty of the organizational developmental sciences and can apply those, and we're certified across the Microsoft stack. So make sure you find somebody to work with you so your organization doesn't have to lump its way through one of these transition projects. Digital transformation is not possible without your people. So you need to prioritize them and bring some expertise to bear on that. I do want to, of course, throw out a free offer for those of you who have been here through the entirety of this webinar, and I want to start that discussion around a value discovery workshop. As we highlighted before, this is a perfect vehicle to identify your current business priorities with your sponsors and map them to leading edge scenarios to assess your organization's readiness to implement what you're looking to do, give you a little bit of a guidepost so that you can know generally where you're headed on this journey, analyze the financial impact of Microsoft 365 on your organization, and engage your business sponsors. Get them involved from the beginning. Your operations, HR, everybody should be at the table when you're making a commitment to Microsoft 365 technology. And of course, it's expertly delivered by one of our certified business value specialists. If you want one, there's the email address, cmoe@corebts.com. I saw a question that came in. How do I schedule a customer immersion experience with Core? Guess what? That same email address is the way to get one scheduled, and we can bring one out to you, deliver it at your offices in a conference room with a dozen of your top people, and enable them to see the capabilities that the Microsoft Cloud can deliver to them and to their current state of business, to start that conversation going and show what digital transformation means for you. It's difficult to theorize in your head, but once you lay out a roadmap built on prioritized business scenarios, that sets you up to now utilize what is an ongoing subscriptive investment into and basically extracting all that value out of the Microsoft platform to meet the needs of your business and help it evolve. So that's where we end. Let me check the Q&A again, see if there's any additional questions that came in. I don't see any right here. So what I'm going to do, I think I'm going to end this a minute early. Thank you all so much for your time. Feel free to reach out if you have additional questions. We're happy to speak to you. My name is Jason Price, Lead of Change Management, Organizational Effectiveness for Core BTS. Thanks.